All right, everybody, welcome to the new podcast, Word for Word. I'm Clayton Hester here, and I've got Ethan Schumer with me. I've got Reagan Tibbs with me. Ethan is with College Democrats, and Reagan is with College Republicans. As you all know, they have participated in our Arrow debate, and now it really feels kind of like it's been quite a while back now. It's
yeah, it's hard to think that was almost 3 weeks ago. This upcoming Wednesday doesn't seem like it. No,
it's just the time messes with you, and I think it's that what would be the good physics equivalent of it? Like as you approach the black hole that is election day, it's like time slows down or speeds. One of those two. I know it's like what either which way. I'm real confused.
8 days away. That's
yeah. So I know that. So before that, I'll start with today's kind of conversation topic that I brought you all on for, and that is the political climate as it stands. And we'll hear hopefully more later from some of our other folks, our other debaters, in terms of that, but. I know one of the big takeaways that lots of people said about civility in how it played out. Question for you all, like what I guess in terms of kind of the political conversation, do you think kind of factored into that? Do you think, and I know that a lot of folks, like a lot of you guys, like really know each other because of the political science department's really well connected. What do you all think factored into that?
Well, I'm very proud that we had a civil debate. I think it was far better than the three debates with the vice presidential debate that we've had so far. I think, first of all, we're not actual politicians ourselves. We may be in the future, but currently we're not. There's not as much of a stigma around, we have to win, our side has to win. Because really, when you have a true debate, there is no clear winner. The best thing we can do is just give our side and then just have a good back and forth of ideas, try not to lie, which I don't think any of us lied, as far as I know. And just, I think that you guys at the Arrow really made an environment where we didn't have the opportunity to really, have cracks at each other, which I don't think we would have if we had the opportunity. But I think just as being maybe younger, and being in college right now, it's just, we don't have much to lose from like losing a debate. Now, I'm sure if we were actual candidates, we'd probably jab a little bit more at each other, but I think it's a bunch of little things put together that made a good debate.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the debate that was put on by the Arrow was definitely a really good exercise and good example of what proper civil discourse can be. Like Ethan said, we really didn't, have quips at one another or really get personal with each other, because I don't think we really know each other well enough to do that. And I don't think that would have been appropriate for what this debate was intended for. This debate was intended for people to understand the positions of each side on the different issues. And so I think bringing personal attacks into a debate like what we had would have been totally inappropriate, in my opinion. And plus, I think we all have a mutual respect for each other, all have a respect for each other's opinions, that we all have differing opinions. So I think that also played a big factor in keeping the debate civil and keeping the debate in a good, like I said, I think it was a very good example of public discourse, and I think that played a big part of it.
Yeah, okay. So now to talk a little bit more about the environment and, the climate that we're living in. 2020, folks talking about where we are with the way that, the political discourse is, how, the first presidential debate went, and then we saw the vice presidential debate had a different tone unto itself as well. And then this last presidential debate that we saw, what do you guys think has been a major factor in how we have seen discourse kind of boil down to what it is today. If you would agree that kind of discourse isn't the best it could be, then what do you think is a factor in that?
Well, political polarization is at its greatest level since before the Civil War. Um, Speaking from a historical perspective, I can say it's likely because of the fall of the Soviet Union. When the Cold War ended, Americans kind of lost that one great enemy that we had. And you can see polling, you can track how members of Congress vote, how presidential administrations, how their policies lie, that Democrats have become more liberal and Republicans have been becoming more conservative. I happen to think that Republicans are becoming more conservative and the Democrats are liberal, but we won't get into that. But I think that just both parties have become much more extreme than they used to be, especially since the 1980s and before the 50s, especially. If you look at just the platforms for Joe Biden and Donald Trump, so different. They agree on so little. And I think that all people are becoming less tolerant of other people. Democrats are converging into cities and Republicans are left in small towns with a very small population of liberals. We're not speaking with each other. We're not, around each other physically. And we both watch different news channels, which means we get different perspectives. It's just kind of the perfect storm, really, of political polarization.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, or Ethan, yeah, looking at a historical perspective, I mean, I don't think we've been as polarized since Civil War and even 1968. I mean, the 1968, that whole year, I mean, 2020 feels like a more extreme version of 1968. I mean, not only did you have Bobby Kennedy get assassinated, but you had, massive riots across the country. You had so many things that happened in 1968, and you see the political polarization, especially on. I think both sides. I think starting from then, kind of started it to get a little more polarized. But then now, as we entered, as Ethan said, since the end of the Cold War, and now the information age has come about. With the spread of social media, things like Facebook, Twitter, people have been more keen to go find the information that they want to hear. Because before it was everybody listened to Walter Cronkite on CBS News, they listened to Dan Rather on ABC, they listened to there are these three, the three big channels had their evening news, and that's all you really heard. But now you can go to Fox, you can go to CNN, you can go to CNBC or MSNBC. You have so many different options. That way people now have the ability to listen to information they want to hear. And that has been a big contributing factor, if you ask me, of political polarization. You see, and I remember being shown this many times, in PS 103 and in PS 240, where we see, back in like the early 80s, both parties and both voters were kind of in the middle towards each other. There wasn't a whole lot of difference. But now, as you start going into the 2000s and into today, both parties and voters are starting to get on the extremes of each political spectrum. There's still some in the middle, but there's not very many. So I think having access to information, also people spreading disinformation and facts that, and things that may not be necessarily true, and people selectively picking out information that they think backs up their argument. I think that has been probably one of the biggest contributing factors to political polarization. Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, those are my two reasons why there's been a lot of political polarization lately.
Yeah, and so one of those things I wanted to talk about was social media as it stands today, in today's climate. And I know there's a lot of conversation about what kind of needs to go on with that, with free speech kind of being a part of the big issue when it comes to how much should these entities, these private, well, these social media entities, how much should they allow in terms of free speech goes, how things are going, how they even interact with public officials. Kind of what are your guys's kind of feel for what is going to kind of be the situation as far as social media goes? Do you think it creates kind of a a problem with public discourse as far as, you know, folks being able to directly respond with the rate in which news and politics happens?
Well, I will say that with social media, it's much easier to insult people. Like me personally, I would never insult someone to their face, but if I was upset enough and I was heated enough, I definitely would insult someone online. And especially, you can see people. You don't. Your identity does not have to be known. You can have a Facebook profile, have a random name, not have a profile picture. You can say whatever you want, and unless they track your IP address, nobody knows who you are. And that goes with fake news as well. I think Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms, they've done a better job at preventing false news, the spread of false news, especially by foreign entities. Um, I think there's still a problem, and obviously we know that fake news spreads much faster than real news. And I try to live by, you know, if I read a story and I'm like, that doesn't sound right, it's probably not true. You know, when you see like crazy stories, like Hillary Clinton ran a pizzeria that was the front for like a sex ring, that's crazy. And I'm sure there's other, you know, I'm sure liberals, especially extreme liberals, have done similar attacks against Republicans, Donald Trump, for instance, and Reagan might know more about that. I'm sure he'll know more about that than I do. Social media is not going away, so these companies need to do a better job at making sure fake news is struck down. And I think us as people who use social media need to do a better job of seeing, well, so like I said before, if something sounds too weird, it's probably it. It probably is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know whenever I go on social media and I see a news story, whether it be someone posts it on their own personal page or they actually share a link to it, I always go to two or three different other news sources to see if the story is actually true. And at that point, you know, in that point, if I don't find it anywhere else, I'm a little more skeptical of it. But if I find it on a couple other pages, I'm like, okay, yeah, this seems a little more legitimate. But no, social media is a double-edged sword. You know, there's the bad part. The good part of it is we're able to be really connected. We can figure out what's going on in everybody's life, we could share what's going on in our daily lives. And it's easy to connect people. I mean, before you'd have to send a letter through the mail or call somebody, but now you can send an instant message from anywhere in the world to anybody to anywhere in the world. And so that's a really phenomenal thing, honestly, to keep us connected. But social media does, like Ethan said, has some problems. I mean, you can hide behind a computer screen. Nobody may know your real name. You can use a fake profile picture, not even a profile picture at all. You can say the most outlandish things, and all it takes is just a few people to start sharing that. And then it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And that's when you get these massive, whether it be fake news or just these most random rumors that are out there float around. And so, yeah, social media, I think has a very big part in the polarization that we see amongst the people. And I think social media companies, do the best they can. And I think they maybe could do a little bit better, but I know they do, like on Facebook, I see all the time, fact checking, using different articles and different resources to fact check information. And I know Twitter is doing the same. I believe Twitter is doing the same as well, maybe Instagram. So I know they're doing their best to try to provide accurate information, but you're going to have people that are going to believe what they believe. You're not going to change their opinion no matter what you show them. You could show them definitive proof that what they're saying may not be right, but there's still going to be those people. They're going to be firm in their belief, firm in their position. You're not going to change it. So, while I think social media companies are doing the best they can, there's still a long way to go to try to solve the issue of fake news and disinformation regarding issues. And I don't know how that's going to play out. That'll be interesting to see.
I wanted to follow up, Reagan, for you in terms of something Ethan had said about in terms of both sides with kind of their approach, or not of course officially those different sides, but actors within different kind of subsets of the political spectrum. Do you guys, and start with Reagan, do you all see is it kind of like, is there like an equal balance of offense? Is one side a particularly bad kind of, I don't know, influence in those sorts of things, or what kind of things do you see?
I mean, so I come from a pretty conservative area, pretty Republican area back home. And so a lot of my Facebook friends and a lot of, people I follow on Facebook post conservative things, but I also follow people that don't necessarily agree with those views. And I mean, I don't know what it's like on the other side. I can't comment on that because I don't follow very much people on the left or people from that side of the political spectrum on social media. But what I can say is I feel like there are people on the Republican side who are very, if they see a Trump tweet, they're going to automatically assume what it says is factually correct, whether it is or not. And I think there are a lot of people, probably more so than the previous type I just mentioned, that are going to want to see definitive information first. So I think there's definitely those people out there that are going to see any sort of information they will on Facebook. I've seen people that have shared things on Facebook that were proven not to be true. But then I've seen people that share information that is actually true. So I think there's a fair share of people on the right side that are on the right that share information that's not actually accurate versus people. I mean, I can't say what it's like on the other side. Maybe Ethan could speak to that more, but I think there's more so that look for actual legitimate information than like post just whatever they see on Facebook or post their own opinions or find a story in some weird, not very well known site that cherry picks information from different sources. And so that's what I see on my side. So I don't know what it's like on the other side for Ethan.
I would say I would agree that both sides are guilty of spreading false news and being hostile and being disrespectful. Like you, opposite of you, I follow most of my, like, let's say Facebook, for example, most of my friends are liberal. I do have some conservative friends, family members, stuff like that. And I usually, if it's something I don't agree with, I try to ignore it unless it's obviously false or misleading. And I almost try to play like the middleman everywhere I'm at. Like if I'm with because I'm a moderate and I'm much more moderate than a lot of my friends who are liberals, I try to kind of bring them closer to the center. But then when I'm with like conservative family members, I try to bring them a little towards the middle. And that's what I would envision. My perfect America would be a bunch of moderates and like a few people on the political extreme. But yeah, I've seen a lot of false news from both sides. And I will say Trump is different from Republicans. When I talk about Democrats and Republicans, I kind of put Trump as a third party that there is, and no disrespect if to people who support Donald Trump, but there are people who quietly support him, and then there are his extreme followers who believe everything he says, even when it's not factual. And I'm sure Joe Biden hasn't been perfectly honest all the time, but I don't follow every word he says. I take it with a grain of salt. So within the Trump era, you see rallies and you see people spewing garbage and very offensive things. Chance of lock her up. That's just awful. And I wish that both parties could become, like I said, more moderate.
Sure, and I asked this question not as a way to, try to get a gotcha moment where it's like, well, this side is particularly worse or anything, and trying to narrow somebody into that. The real kind of the purpose being is that it's interesting to see, and just the other day I encountered this. There was a story that actually had broken towards more the beginning of October regarding Trump's antibody therapy. Basically, it had said that it was derived from fetal stem cells, from it basically that he had benefited from an abortion. And so then that also then factors into the opinions that you see popping up. And so what was kind of being seen was, attacks from the left in terms of Trump's hypocrisy on this issue. And so then you see things like USA Today, which, well, it nuanced it more in its fact check saying that there were fetal derived cells used in the testing of this therapy, but it was not him directly. Those sorts of things, that in terms of getting those stories more clear and more direct, and helping public discourse in terms of how people are hearing these things and kind of understanding this. And so do you think that the situation has kind of reached a point, and okay, I kind of this is kind of what I like to call, in terms of my kind of question style, like one of those quick crystal ball questions where I ask you a what if. But if depending on how this election goes, what do you all see as far as kind of how rhetoric, how public discourse evolves based on who wins the election, whether it be Trump or Biden?
I'm not looking forward to. So I want the election to be over. I'm sick of the ads. I think we all are. We're sick of the ads. We're sick of everything on social media. I'm not confident. I hate to say this. I'm not confident for whoever wins that public discourse will get better. If we see a Trump victory, I predict the same things that happened in 2016 and 2017. Protests, people on the left not honoring the results of the election, saying he's not my president. And especially if he loses the popular vote but wins the Electoral College again, which is very likely will happen if he does win. Now, if Joe Biden wins, we could see violence from the right, and this is from the far, far extremes of the party. Nothing like, I don't expect Reagan to be out there, protesting or anything like that. Maybe, I don't know. But of course, this is the extremes of both sides doing these kind of things. I can't say if anything can be done to help. I think the spread of false news, if we can crack down on that, that will help a lot. And I think politicians themselves, especially members of Congress, need to watch what they say and do, because they're our leaders and they set the example for us. Like, I think the president and members of Congress should be far more respectful than the average public, and that doesn't always happen. So.
Yeah, I agree with Ethan. Whoever wins this election, I think there's going to be, whichever side, is on the losing side, there's going to be misinformation. There's going to be the same things that I think we saw after 26. There's going to be, I don't think it's really going to change that much. If anything, it could even get worse, which I hope it doesn't. But no, I'm not one of those that's going to, if Trump loses, I'm not going to go out to the streets and protest. I'm not going to show up at a polling place and, as an armed militia. I don't even own a gun, so I wouldn't even. But no, I think that whoever does win, whether it be Trump or whether it be Biden, I think both are going to have kind of a problem of trying to unite the country. I mean, I'm not saying one's a better uniter than another. I think they both have pros and cons as to who's the better uniter, but and who can unite, their own base versus, people outside of their base. But I think whoever it's going to be very hard to try to combat against what we saw in 2016. I just don't see things really changing that much in terms of getting for the better. Again, it possibly could get worse, and I hope it does not get worse, because I am with Ethan. I'm tired of it already. I mean, we're not even to election day. We've been in this for I don't even remember when the first Democratic candidate started running for office. I mean, we've been seeing this for so long now. The election cycle's been going on. It feels like it's been an eternity. But I don't think 2020 as a year itself has helped that at all. So yeah, no, I'm definitely in agreement that nothing. I don't think really a whole lot's going to change. Especially, I don't think a whole lot's going to get any better.
I think that Elizabeth Warren was the first Democrat to announce for president. I think she did it in early January on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve in 2019.
It was right around then, and I think Ted, back in 2016, Ted Cruz was like the first one, and he was like almost January of 2015, like very early on in 2015, like way before a year before Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you starting this early?
It's like,
you're
it's not
not
like,
gaining you're not getting an advantage starting that early. But no, I mean even though I live in Illinois and it's not really that competitive of a state, and even though Missouri's not really that competitive at all, if you watch any national television station or affiliate, you're going to see political ads, especially for the presidency, even for statewide and local races. So yeah, every time I see a political ad, especially on YouTube, and if I can skip it, I'm skipping it because I just don't want to watch. Maybe it's my fault for choosing political science, but no, I'm definitely getting a little fed up with that. I just can't wait till election day's here and gone, and then hopefully we can start getting back to normal on things.
right.
All right. Any final thoughts on this? I think that's probably about all the time for this portion of the show.
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Clayton.
All right. Have a great one.